A group of scientists inserted electric current into the giant's head. As the electric current increased, the cells in the giant's severed head were moving gently, even until the dead giant kept blinking and oozing blood. The scientists saw the situation. They could no longer control it, and had to put the decapitated head back into the airtight chamber. This scene shocked everybody present. Could this be the creator they had been looking for? It turned out that hundreds of millions of years ago, before humans were born, an oval-shaped ship. The spaceship stayed above the flowing waterfall. Under the spaceship there was a giant wearing white underwear. You can call it an engineer. The engineer opened a box of strange containers and drank the black liquid inside. Then his pale body began to change. The cells in the body began to change. It began to break, and the body decomposed rapidly. Finally, it fell into the rapids and merged with the river water. The oval-shaped boat also flew away. This is the movie. The Origin of Humanity in China. A year later, the remains of an alien civilization were discovered during archaeological excavations on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, England. Archaeologists discovered a planet there was a planet far away from the Earth. They predicted that this planet may contain the origin of humankind. Then, in 2093, a group of people followed clues on a spacecraft named Prometheus to a planet 10.5 light-years away from Earth to find the origin of mankind. There was a man named David on the spacecraft. He is a cyborg responsible for taking care of the dormant crew. David has a strong learning ability. He likes to play basketball and also likes to watch movies and learn the costumes and lines of the actors in them. During the long flight, David seemed to learn to think independently. After 2 years of flying, the spacecraft finally arrived at its destination. David woke up the sleeping crew. Some adverse reactions will occur after long-term dormancy. Ying Weeks concentrated in the hall after a short break. Their boss, Whelan, told everyone through the holographic image that Dr. Xiao had made new discoveries in the murals at the alien ruins. The giants in the murals may have planned the origin of mankind for this trip. The purpose is to follow Dr. Xiao to find out the origin of mankind. Now they are about to arrive at the engineer's planet. As the spacecraft lands smoothly on the planet, they see a semicircular building standing on the surface of the planet. A group of people wearing equipment enter the circular building and find that the air is actually people could breathe, and took off their helmets. This adventure seemed easy, but David discovered the aliens on the wall and curiously pressed the panel on the wall. Suddenly there was a wave of images of the entire system in the passage. A group of giant engineers hurried forward. As if they were running away from something, people quickly chased the image and found a headless body where the image disappeared. That's it. Phil, the physicist, was frightened. Then he took Miller and prepared to return to the spacecraft first. The remaining group of people opened the stone door and found the engineer's crushed head. The furnishings in the secret room were very similar to an altar. A huge head stood on the ground in front. There were black jars. When the crowd entered, the black liquid in the jar was moving. When a group of people rushed to Jinya, the captain found that a big storm was coming and told them to evacuate immediately and return to the spacecraft. So Dr. Xiao quickly loaded the giants. When the head was about to leave, David secretly took a jar with him. However, no one noticed that earthworm-like creatures emerged from the black water in the secret room. When a group of people returned to the spacecraft, they discovered that Phil and Miller had not returned. It turned out that they were in the complex. There was mud in the tunnel, and they could only wait for the storm to pass before picking them up. Dr. Xiao carefully studied the giant's head, and was surprised to find that his name is that of human beings, and the dead brain is activated. Then the giant miraculously opens its eyes, and finally explodes accidentally because the current is too strong. But this seems to indicate that the origin of human beings and the giant must have a certain connection. On the other side, David comes to the unopened East Cotton warehouse seemed to be shining on someone through the neural chain, and reporting this scene to Miss Weeks. But obviously the people in the cabin did not want to be discovered by others, even Supreme Commander Weeks. Then he seemed to be ordered to open the can. After pouring out a drop of black liquid from the container, it can be seen that this thing is also an organism. Then he came to Dr. Xiao's boyfriend and mixed the drop of black liquid into the wine. Unknowingly, Charlie took the wine glass and drank it. In the evening, he and Dr. Xiao drank together. The two team members who were unable to return to the mothership in time returned to the secret room full of cans. As they continued to admire the decoration, the creature wandering in the water attracted their attention. The thing looked like a reptile. The two people who had been timid before now had the courage to approach this unknown creature. However, this white snake was obviously not that easy to remind. It wrapped around the man's arm and became tighter and tighter until the bones were broken and the flesh was visible. The teammate on the side tried to cut it open, but the blood it shot out was highly corrosive, and he was shot to death on the spot. The white snake stayed alive and burrowed into the spacecraft. The man exploded inside the suit. When Dr. Xiao's boyfriend got up and washed up the next day, he noticed something strange about himself in the mirror. There seemed to be tiny worms moving in his eyes. It seemed that the black water last night was loudly playing, and he didn't care to pay attention to it. People put on the spacesuit again. They went to search for their lost companions, but they only found a corpse. A snake-like creature emerged from the corpse. They were startled. At this time, Dr. Xiao felt uncomfortable and quickly organized the team members to take him back to the spacecraft. At this time, David cut off the relationship with the spacecraft alone. When he came to a place similar to a cockpit, he saw the holographic image of the engineer's lifetime, but he did not know the cause of the collective demise. It can be seen that their goal is to fly to the Earth. At the same time, he discovered that there was a surviving engineer still in the dormant cabin. The camera came to the expedition team again. Dr. Xiao's boyfriend's infection became more and more serious. Within a few minutes, his face was covered with blood, and he looked like a zombie. It was extremely scary. He knew he couldn't save himself. He ignored Dr. Xiao's pleas and let weeks burn him alive. Watching his boyfriend die in front of him, Dr. Xiao fainted with excitement. Then David checked and found that Dr. Xiao was 3 months pregnant. Dr. Xiao couldn't believe that he was still alive. The intimate act between the child and her boyfriend happened only 10 hours ago when David knew he was. The pregnancy must be because Blackwater wanted to freeze Xiao and transport him back to Earth despite his resistance. Xiao could only pretend to be drowsy. Finally, when others were not paying attention, he tried to fight back and escaped. When he came to the medical cabin, he crawled into the treatment cabin in pain and passed through. The supersurgical instrument automatically started the cesarean section. Finally, after a painful struggle, the mechanical arm came out of the belly and took out the octopus-like creature. The creature immediately broke away from the placenta and struggled. The Xiao Lian gang escaped and locked the strange thing in regret. At the same time, the captain detected, if there are any surviving teammates outside the cabin, you can open the door and see him lying on the ground in a strange yoga posture. When he stands up completely, it becomes like a funeral. He quickly kills 2 teammates. Captain Zhan Zhuang brings the rest of his teammates to fight, give him a fire and destroy him. Dr. Xiao, who was in frail health, accidentally discovered Wylander in a sleeping cabin. It turns out that he has been following Prometheus. He wants to find the creator and ask for eternal life. Now David has found an engineer who is still alive and is going to see him. On the other hand, the captain discovered a spacecraft under the circular building and speculated that this planet may be just a military base for researching biological weapons. No one would leave such a terrible weapon on their doorstep. The captain and Xiao agree not to bring the monster back to Earth. Then David led a group of people to the engineer's hibernation cabin and performed some operations to wake him up. Wylander quickly got David to express his wish for eternal life. The engineer stroked David's head gently, but then angrily tore off his head. The scene went out of control in an instant, and the engineer killed other crew members. Not only did Wylander fail to gain eternal life, but he died in despair. Only Dr. Xiao was lucky enough to escape. At this time, the engineer designed. The path forward was determined, and the spacecraft was launched to prepare to go to the Earth. The Space Knight cockpit here is exactly the cockpit of the first step in the journey. For the first time, we can get a glimpse of its true purpose. Dr. Xiao told the captain that the purpose of the engineer was to destroy humans on the Earth. There was a lot of black water on the spacecraft, and he had to find a way to stop it. The careless captain thought for a moment, and immediately started the spacecraft to adjust its direction. Finally, he and the 3 pilots drove at bullet speed. Prometheus collided with the engineer spacecraft. The sky flashed for a moment, and then the engineer spacecraft crashed. Weeks, who had just landed in the escape capsule, was about to be chased by the spacecraft. Unfortunately, he could only run in a straight line and was crushed into a meat pie by the wreckage. Dr. Xiao escaped smoothly. Yijie hurriedly came to the crashed cabin to look for materials. However, he found that the octopus taken out from the abdomen had now become very huge. Dr. Xiao looked at him in horror. When he retreated, David's voice suddenly sounded. He told the doctor that the engineer was coming to find him, but it was too late. The angry engineer opened the hatch and almost caught him. Fortunately, Xiao opened the medical hatch emergency, and the octopus tentacles immediately rolled up Engineer Xiao. The doctor took the opportunity to jump away, and then a whole tentacle burst into his mouth. The big octopus successfully parasitized Dr. Xiao and escaped from the lifeboat. He fell helplessly on the ground and cried. Then David's voice rang again. He told Dr. Xiao that the planet was still scattered. There are many spaceships that he can pilot the spaceship and Xiao to leave here. However, Dr. Xiao changes his mind and tells David that he is going to the engineer's planet. He wants to know why the engineer created humans, but in the end, he has to destroy humans. As Xiao and David's spaceship quickly leaves, the engineers in the medical cabin began to twitch, and a huge monster crawled out. He slowly stood up, showing his sharp teeth and making a terrible sound. Roaring with fear, the first epidemic was successfully hatched.